So, I just guess I'm making a lot of videos right now. I figure I'm probably not going to upload my 2-month video just because of procrastination and just not really feeling like it. So I thought I would give you a general life update, seeing as how a lot has changed in my professional life over the past few months, and it is pretty directly pertained to me being transgender. So those of you who've watched my videos before, I usually mention that I'm a teacher. I'm not going to mention like specifics as to where I teach or anything like that, but I wanted to talk about institutionalized depression and what that looks like, and how people who hold on to certain privileges can be completely blind. Their intent can be in the right place, but their actions speak differently, and what they believe is support and what they truly think is a way of being supportive can sometimes be really hurtful. I worked at a school last year that I really liked. I loved my coworkers, I loved my kids, and it was really hard for me to be struggling with being transgender while working there. And at the end of the year, I came out to them and I told them that I plan on returning, and I was honest, like that was my intent. And then halfway through the summer, I met with people higher up about how my coming out should look for the upcoming school year, and they presented a plan to me. So nowhere along the lines in the weeks that followed after school got out did they contact me asking if I wanted to collaborate with them or brainstorm with them on what this would look like. They didn't ask for any of my input, and I think on their end it was that they didn't want to like put extra work on my plate, and they didn't want me to feel like I had to take this on. But I would have appreciated an invitation to a discussion on a very, very personal matter involving me and my life. But that didn't happen, and so they called me in like halfway through the summer to discuss this plan. And they wanted to be supportive. I mean, by law they had to be, even if they didn't want to be, because Colorado is one of the few states that protects me, which is nice. But their plan was from the viewpoint of parents, I suppose. They had experienced issues in the past with a lesbian teacher coming out, and there was a lot of backlash from the parents, and they made the stupid mistake, I think, of listening to those conversations. They met with the parents for them to essentially just like spew their hate speech, and I don't think that was appropriate. I think they should have taken a stronger stance, and they should have said, we're not going to tolerate any sort of hate speech for anyone on our staff, and if you are uncomfortable with our decision to do so, you can take your kid elsewhere. That's what I think they should have done. I think that's what proving that you are supportive, I think that's what that looks like. And it looked like they wanted to do the same thing. They wanted to make sure that parents felt heard and that parents felt informed. So they wanted to give me a homeroom. We had gendered homerooms, but they still have gendered homerooms. But they wanted me to meet with every family that was going to be in my homeroom to see if they would feel comfortable with me being their homeroom teacher, and essentially have me meet with them and answer any of their questions. So any questions they had about my identity, I would then have to essentially explain. And even though I would have the right to not say anything, that's not something that is very comfortable to do in a meeting with a parent and their child. So that made me uncomfortable, step one. was that. And then they said after that meeting, they would then send out a letter explaining that they had a teacher on staff that was going to be transitioning. They wouldn't say it was me, but I mean, as the only masculine presenting female on staff, I don't think it would be too far of a stretch for students to guess that it would be me. And not to mention that they would just find out when school started anyways. But anyways, they wanted to send out a letter to all of the parents, all of the families of the school, not even just of the grade that I teach, not even just of the kids that would be taking my Spanish class, but to every single family. And not only that, they would then offer them a night where they could come in and ask any questions, basically being a night for them to come in and disagree, a night for them to come in and feel heard, like their hate speech was valid and that their thoughts and their discrimination was okay. They wanted to provide them with that space so they felt heard. And they said explicitly that they didn't think it would be a good idea for me to be there, which I agreed. But it made me really uncomfortable. And then I brought up what my first day would look like, because even though I'd have a whole new set of kids, they still have seen me around the school before, so it didn't really make sense to me to not have a conversation with them about it, because it was obvious that if they're not telling them in the letters and they're not going to tell the kids before school starts about me, then my whole first day of every single class there would be a huge elephant in the room. Going from Miss to Mr. from last year to this year, it would be definitely noticeable. And so I brought that up, and they actually told me that they didn't think that that was a conversation that needed to be had, because they didn't have me as a teacher before, so they didn't see why the conversation needed to happen. They didn't think it was fit for the Spanish classroom because it wasn't relevant. And what they suggested instead was that they would have the homeroom teachers tell each of their homeroom kids. And they said that perhaps when we went on staff retreat, it would be a good idea for me to talk about my narrative a bit, so they felt a little bit more informed about me and about being transgender. So essentially they just wanted me to educate the staff so then that the staff could tell the kids without any sort of formal training or anything. And that made me wildly uncomfortable. Like, when you go and become a teacher and you sit in these classes, like, you go through a class that literally tells you, like, don't spotlight kids. If a kid is a minority, don't expect that they should be speaking out about their entire race unless they volunteer that up. So I don't really understand why suddenly I was being spotlighted as the person to speak out about all of transgenderism and basically explain my entire narrative. And even if I did do that, I don't think I would provide them with adequate enough information that they could then educate young minds about this. And so that made me really uncomfortable also. But I didn't really know like what else to do. I didn't really have any other options. So I agreed, because I didn't want to say, like, no, I don't like that, but I don't have any other solutions. So I agreed to it. And as I thought about it more and more, I started thinking, like, I think my school needs more resources. So I went and I looked and I tried to find them some resources to turn to, and I talked to my friends who had resources, and I ended up talking to a queer principal, and then I ended up taking another job. It just, like, you know, I got offered a job at a place where they said they wouldn't tolerate that they accepted me, that I didn't have to justify anything. And to me, just them saying that showed that they were further along than where I was working before. So I left. And it was a really hard decision for me, because I loved my school. I loved my coworkers, and it was nothing against them. It was nothing against the kids. But I didn't want to be at a place that sided with parents over my identity. I just wanted to exist. And the issue is that they really truly thought that they were doing the best thing for me. And then the other issue was that I talked about this with one of my friends, and I was actually told, like, well, you know, being transgender is not something that's as, like, well known as, like, racial issues. And so I don't think we're at a place where you can expect that sort of treatment of just existing and it being fine, and that you're gonna have to tolerate all of these steps to justifying just being a teacher and teaching kids. Like, you're gonna have to explain all this stuff, and you're gonna have to jump through these loopholes, and at that really sucked, like, to hear from a friend. You know, because in my mind it was like, why does my existence have to be so much harder? And, like, when is a good time? When is it a good time to say that I deserve to be treated like everyone else? When is it going to be convenient enough for society for me to just be there and not have to explain myself? You know, like, at the end of the day, I'm just like anyone else. I'm just as human as you are. Why do I have to go in depth about all of these personal matters simply because you don't understand it, or because you don't experience it, or it's off your radar? Like, does that mean that I have to expose myself in this way, in a way that makes me feel vulnerable and isolated and othered? It doesn't make sense. And so it's just all of these subtle things where people don't realize what they're saying, or what it really feels like to be so different and to be so alone in a way. But I don't know. I'm getting over it. I mean, I have a new job. I'm employed. Like, I'm still teaching. I still like what I do. But it can be hard. There are definitely hurdles that you have to overcome, and it sucks to have a plan and then have that plan crumble beneath you. But it is what it is, and I'm recovering. I am doing well. So anyways, I just wanted to give you guys that update on my life and why I'm at a different school. So there it is. If you have any comments, questions, anything, comment, message me. Anyways, have a good day, guys.